Hello everyone, Jake here from Monsters and Munchkins. Excited to, first of all, tell you two things. First of all, we're going back to Sunday and Wednesday videos because, I'm just going to sit down and talk to this camera for a very long time. Channel update will be in the description below so you all get a full idea of what's going on. And second of all, and probably more exciting and what I should have started with, we're playing D&D live every Friday from 6 to 9 p.m. over on Twitch, and this video is going to be about Icewind Dale, the campaign that we just started, running a Session 0, and how our Session 1 went, and my thoughts on starting that campaign. Also, before we jump into the video, we are sponsored by the Bearded Dragon Games in Oneonta, New York. So if you're in Central New York and you need some gaming supplies, go check them out because they made it possible for us to give away a copy of Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frost Maiden, which we will be doing on October 2nd. So if you want the book, come check out our Twitch. This week we started Icewind Dale, and I think it went pretty well, and here are just some thoughts on starting the campaign and how our session went. First of all, Session 0 is ridiculously important in this campaign for so many reasons. Player backstories will be important, and there is a mechanic in the book to roll for secrets, which we will talk about in just a moment, which will impact your characters over the course of the campaign. Another important aspect of Session 0 is first make it known that this campaign is deadly, like really deadly. These low-level missions are brutal stuff, and we've talked on the channel, I like making challenging encounters, but some of them feel pointlessly deadly, so deliver that to your players, and definitely when you're prepping material, and I made this mistake, when you're prepping material, make sure you take that into account and tone it down to make it level appropriate. The last important thing to talk about in Session 0 with your players is the fact that this is a horror campaign, and I think they've done a much better job making this campaign feel scary and ominous than they did with previous books like Curse of Strahd, which is supposed to be a horror campaign, but really you just break into the castle and you go, hey Strahd, where's my money? Be sure to talk to your players about what they're comfortable about within the realms of horror. This is something we talked about in our first session, and pretty much everybody was open to anything. I know there are topics I wasn't comfortable with that I'm not going to put in there. Now, this book also does come with new rules for Goliaths, and we'll be talking about that in our Icewind Dale review. The character secrets all have different effects, and they will all be talked about in our Icewind Dale review, which will be coming out after this video, so find that on the channel. It will probably be linked on the screen somewhere. But let's just talk about the secrets that my players rolled for. So, of course, A, spoilers for Icewind Dale, B, spoilers for The Will of the Frost Maiden, the name of our campaign over on Twitch. So if you don't want either of those to be spoiled, don't watch these videos. So the first one was rolled for by my brother Cody. His character's name is Cedric. He's a blood hunter who already had a very intricate backstory, but he rolled that he is a descendant of the nobles of Neverwinter. This has a lot of implications aside from the current Lord of Neverwinter wanting to kill him because he is a rightful heir to the throne. He also has to deal with now being nobility and what that means because he's torn between these two lives of living in Icewind Dale his whole life, and, he's royalty, so maybe he should go do something about that. Next up, my poor friend Nate, who's playing an awesome Goliath named Crip, who will be in this episode at some point, rolled the secret Slod Tadpole. You have a Slod Tadpole in you. That is terrible. I am so sorry, Nate. It almost certainly is going to result in death because his character is not smart enough to realize that it could be cured by a cure disease spell or something along those lines. That'll be another interesting plot arc. My friend Robert is trying to find the signet ring of his father for his character Ren, which is lost inside a trout somewhere. Robert, don't watch this part. I'm going to put it in Old Bitey because Old Bitey is cool. Finally, my friend Dan, who was already a thief and a spy, rolled the secret spy ring, so he is working for the Harpers. I love the Harpers. Whenever we play Lords of Waterdeep, they're my faction. So I'm excited to have representation for them in the campaign, especially considering I think they're going to be going to Bryn Shader soon. So with all of that out of the way, how did I actually start the campaign? Well, there are 10 quests for your players to go on to kick things off, and they are all really good quests in my opinion. However, I have never been a fan of the whole you start in tavern, or a fan of you're all here because reasons, or any of those random things to get campaigns started. So now we're going to jump into how I actually started it and just do a recap of all of Session 1 in this campaign diary. Do note, it should be up on Twitch. I did have VODs enabled, and it's not up yet because I wanted to upload it to Twitch and to YouTube. So this upcoming Wednesday, I'll be doing a pain stream when this video comes out, and hopefully working out the kinks of whatever the hell went wrong and why that VOD didn't upload. Hopefully it does upload at some point, but if not, and you would like to watch the rest of this campaign, watch the rest of this video so you know what happened in our first session. So, to kick things off, I had to think of a town that I wanted them to start in. Now, there's 10 towns, so, 10 very different possible starting points and story arcs. However, I really wanted a town that was leaving human sacrifices to Oral, because I wanted to show how horrifying this place can be. So I picked Targos for a few reasons. The first being that the speaker of the town is working for the Zementarians, which are an evil spy ring who are trying to eliminate the Harpers and are trying to set up a black market stronghold in Icewind Dale. And with the whole thing going on with Oral taking over the region and plunging it into darkness and forever winter, they kind of seize this as their opportunity. And I wanted to see how my players, if they would even care about that, how they would interact with those bad guys. Because they are bad guys. I do like putting obvious bad guys in my campaign. It's fun, and it gives the player somebody to hate, which I think is important. So to kick off the session, after I describe how Oral has come to Icewind Dale and sealed it off from the sun, the roots of the 10 towns, and what the current situation is with the whole, forever winter thing, the players wake up unconscious in the back of a cart. They've never met each other before, and this is really weird. So they hear this guy talking outside. He's talking in a very sophisticated accent, and he is giving instructions to some of his underlings. And the underlings speak back in Undercommon, which is only recognized by the blood hunter Cedric. Basically, they have this whole conversation about killing these people, making it look random, searching one of them for a set of papers, and then disposing their bodies and making everything look completely random, which is why they picked such different people. So after they kick off, they see these Duergar get on the back of the cart, and this cart that they're in starts traveling down this road as a winter storm begins to brew around them. I decided it was a blizzard. I didn't actually wind up using the words for a blizzard. I just kind of wanted to get everybody working together to find a safe place to hide. So after a little while, the cart stops and the driver up front curses at a dog that has stopped them in the road. The Goliath barbarian seizes this opportunity to break out of his chains, and they jump into combat. Now, they don't have their weapons at first, and things look a little rough. I did scale back the stats of the Duergar significantly, so they're not able to all double their size. The one that did double their size only had a club, so he was only rolling for 2d4 damage, and the rest of them just had one attack, normal, and I bumped the hit points down to 13. So they get into the fight. It doesn't look great at first. The Blood Hunter goes down, but overall they're able to pull through, and now they have to work together. Here's where I decided to segue into the Targos adventure. Now, if you read the book, which I think you should, and you could win it on our channel on October 2nd. If you read the book, the Targos adventure starts with them in Targos, and they find this dog with no owner. Somebody recognizes the dog. He says that it's his husband's dog, and the dog shouldn't be here without his husband named Garrett. In this adventure, in the book it says Garrett went out to find a werebear, but I have plans for her in a future session, so I just said Garrett went out to find another lost adventurer, and Garrett's party is also nowhere to be found. My players weren't so fortunate to have this encounter. They're out in the wilderness. They have this random dog pop up. Thankfully, and I knew this planning my session, one of my players, Robert, his character Ren, who is a mountain dwarf, loves animals. So of course his first reaction was to follow the dog. Thank you, Robert. So they follow the dog, they get to the destroyed campsite, they look around, they all recuperate here, they introduce themselves to each other, they have some very kind of jilted conversations, nobody's really opening up, everybody's very scared and trying to figure out what the hell's going on, because nobody knows why they got kidnapped. They take a short rest and then they decide to follow the dog. Now I moved some stuff around in this encounter. I put the mountain goats first, but then instead of avalanche immediately, I put them so they found Garrett and they were able to talk to him. Garrett says that his adventuring party had gotten ambushed by a large white creature. It was a Yeti. They gotten ambushed by a large white creature, and he is determined that he must find his friends. Thankfully, my players are actually good people in this campaign, which is kind of a first for me. So they were all like, yeah, if there's lost people out there that could use our help, let's go help them. I was so happy by that moment, and I was kind of overjoyed that my players actually are putting other people first. So they go on this adventure. They start going up this mountain with Garrett after he's able to recuperate a little bit, and they get to an impasse. Now I had described how the snow in the area that they were in is kind of packed in, but parts of it are loose. And as they start walking, an avalanche occurs. Now here is where I messed up royally as a DM, and I'm so sorry to my players. It had been a crazy day, and I could sit here and make excuses for myself this entire time, editing videos, doing the channel by myself, real life things, but I'm just going to own up to the fact that I did not prep this part nearly as well as I should have, and I will be much more on top of it in the future. This avalanche starts, and I was originally using the rules from Avalanche at the beginning of the book, where, it's much bigger and much more dangerous than this one. They had actually scaled this one back in the book, thankfully, for level 1 characters, and I had just missed that when it started. So, unfortunately, as they're getting through, I also might change to avalanches. I make avalanches a skill challenge. If you don't know what a skill challenge is, it's basically where people can contribute skills to make whatever they're getting through easier. On a failed skill challenge, I use the actual avalanche rules from the book. On a semi-successful or successful skill challenge, I make it so you only need 1 or 2 attempts to escape from the buried snow, and it's not nearly as deadly as it is in the book, because those avalanches are just designed to kill people. It can even take down a high-level party if they have some poor rolls, and nobody wants to die for no reason. I have no problem with player characters dying. Obviously, it's not a good thing. But nobody wants your character to die in a pile of snow for absolutely no reason on a meaningless encounter. So one of my players, Robert's characters, did actually almost die, and thankfully I caught that I had messed up. I apologized to my players. I allowed us to rewind time a bit, and they managed to make it through the situation with a successful medicine check to stabilize him, and nobody died in the first session. That's on me as a DM. It won't happen again. So after this particular impasse, they go up the mountain, and they find this opening to a cave. There's bloodstains on the floor. One of the players makes a survival check to recognize what type of blood it is. Humanoid. They go inside. They take the left entrance around, because there's 2 ways they could have gone. They could have either gone straight across this rock bridge, which would have revealed the bones of a dead male Goliath who was in Garrett's party, or they could have gone around where they will see a Yeti tyke playing with a halfling as if it's a toy, with its mother watching on. Now at this point, the Yetis get spooked. The baby runs behind the mom steps in front of it but makes no move towards the players, and they're able to save Perilou the halfling from Garrett's party. Perilou informs them that the male Goliath was killed, and that she doesn't know where their wizard tiefling went. At this point, the party recuperates and they head out of the cave. Now, at this point, there's supposed to be an adult male Yeti that comes into the cave, and the players, I'm not sure how they're supposed to get their hands on the Yeti tyke. There's no way they're getting it away from its mom, and I don't know how they're supposed to get out of this situation if they don't have the Yeti Whisperer secret. So I just basically said that the Yeti ignores them as he comes in with the dead mountain goat. That was my solution, because I was really not in the mood to kill any players in this session. Not that I'm going to be pulling Deus Ex Machinas all the time, but just because it's our first session, and a Yeti for a level 1 party is unbelievably difficult to work through. It is 100% deadly and completely meaningless. They continue up the mountain, and they find the tiefling wizard dead and frozen. They find the people that they were originally looking for, a shield dwarf explorer, also dead. He's been dead for about a month, and it was just super sad, and everybody was like, man, this sucks. And one of my players is like, this is Barovia, but sadder and more deadly. And I'm like, yeah, you're kind of right. So I'm glad that we instilled that in the first session. Now, there will be moments of brevity, especially in this upcoming session, which I'm very excited for. I was happy that the first session was set with this mood of despair, because that is what the residents of 10 Towns should be feeling at this point. At this point, it was really cool to see my friend Nate and his Goliath character, Crip, take an opportunity to really develop their character a bit. Now, he plans on being in Path of the Ancestral Guardians Barbarian, and he will be on here for him talking about his character. But basically, he takes the corpses, and he goes to bury them, and he performs this ceremonial rite, where he tattoos something onto himself and onto the players. He will describe this more in depth than I can, because he knows his character better. But it was this cool moment where he's able to lay them to rest, and Robert's character, Ren, watches, and it's just like, whoa, that's super weird, dude. And then Nate's like, this was just a way to help the spirits pass on. And I just thought that was very sweet, and I'm very excited to see where his character goes, and I'm very proud of him for the massive depth of performance he's made in role-playing. He's come a long way since he started. So after this particular moment, they recuperate. Cedric talks to Garrett about the adventurer, gets more sad. They see Oral take to the sky in her rock form and cast her dreadful spell, and they spend the night out in the wilderness. Uneventful, no more random encounters at this point. Now, I give them 2 options on the way back. Either they can go back through the mountains, which will require a skill challenge. My players don't like skill challenge. By the way, the point of a skill challenge isn't to mess with your players, it's to get them to use skills that they don't normally do. Look at their character sheet, describe their actions, and then apply a skill to it and roll. I originally started doing this when I was GMing a campaign back in high school to get new players to look at their skills. And I think that it's a fantastic system. So their 2 options are mountain with skill challenge, or tundra, which Garrett describes as filled with dangerous wildlife. After a brief discussion, my players decide to go back through the mountains. They have a breeze of a time getting back home, and they get to the town of Targos. Now, once in Targos, Garrett is reunited with his husband. It's a lovely scene. The players all kind of watch for a moment, and then Garrett's husband, Keegan, comes back and gives them a reward, insisting that they take this for saving his husband's life. They go to the tavern at this point in Targos, and they start having a drink and discussing what their plans for the future are. Now, at this point, I had the speaker of the town enter the tavern. I describe him as looking ominous and significant and carrying himself with an air of importance. Now, my players have never spent any time in Targos in their backstories. Ren is a shield dwarf, Crip is a Goliath from the mountains, Cedric is from Lonelywood, and Eli is new to Icewind Dale. He comes from the Sword Coast, and he has spent most of his time with his contact in Bryn Shander. So when he walks in, nobody knows who he is, so Cedric goes up and says, "Hi, who are you?" And the guy says, "You must know who I am." And Cedric goes, "No, we really don't." And he goes, "I'm the speaker of the town." And I text Eli that he recognizes him. He knows that he is a Matarian spy who is trying to set up a spy ring in Icewind Dale. Now, Eli just goes over and just starts listening to the conversation that he's having with Cedric, which seems to be a normal conversation, and eventually he excuses himself to go up to his room. Now, before Eli can say anything to the party, in walks a town crier and says, come out, the lottery is being drawn," and my players, having no idea what this means, goes outside. At this point, they see the person who has been selected is Eli Fulbright, my friend Dan's character. And Dan, not knowing what's going on, goes, "Ooh, I'm Eli Fulbright." At which point, the speaker sees him, and a pair of guards, which are actually Zemetarian spies, comes over and seizes Eli. That is where we ended the session.
So here's the part where we talk to the poor players that I get to torture. Nate, his eyes just froze shut for a minute, which is weird. This is Nate. He is playing Crip, the Goliath Barbarian.
What an amazing name.
I was very excited by that name. And you had it. I feel like you had a really good session. So let's just start off. Why don't you introduce yourself and you just give us your initial thoughts about the campaign?
Yeah, no. I am Nathan. I play Crip Droll, the Goliath Barbarian, and hopefully future Ancestral Guardian. No, it was a, like, aside from the scare with the avalanche, it was great. Although I didn't.
I've already talked about that, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you did?
Uh-huh.
Oh,
I
sorry.
owned up. I was like, yeah, I fucked up. That's okay.
Yeah. As far as I didn't think I would be head. Like Droll didn't. I didn't think he was gonna be the head, but there was no affirmative action from anyone else currently. So it's just.
Well, you know why you're in charge, right? It's because you have a 7 charisma and an 8 intelligence. So that makes you a natural leader. Why don't you just give us not too much background on him? Why don't you just give us a little bit of background on Crip?
I mean, a couple weird things about him is that he's that weird, I want to say moon rock color, not really white, not really gray, but that really weird in-between space, and a complete lack of tattoos aside from the not tattoos on the arm, which is some sort of weird, half permanent chalk or whatever it is. I don't know.
Right.
I didn't think that far, but it's just he's got marks on his arm.
It's really intense charcoal.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
He's out in the wilderness doing whatever. He's doing the right on whatever it finds because he strongly believes it calms the souls of, well, not souls, but the spirits. It prevents ghosts and crap or whatever.
Yeah. So let's talk about the right, because that was a really cool and kind of powerful part, and that's not really something you really get out of one. So just everybody, we already talked about, they went through the adventure. They went through the Targos-centered adventure, which I modified a bit, and they found the dead tiefling and the dead shield dwarf. And when they found the bodies, Crip did this right, which I kind of skipped over when I was doing my recap. So, Nate, why don't you go ahead and tell us what that right is exactly and kind of go through the process?
Should I talk about the Chronicle part?
Yeah, talk about the Chronicle.
Okay, so when we rolled for Chronicle, I got a not really great. Well, great is subjective, but considering the stats I use it for, it's not ideal.
Yeah.
But basically, where he learned this right was from this cave where he got Dungeon Delver from, because he spent all this amount of time in this cave, learning the cave and kind of on the walls and whatever language it was he learned this right, this way of calming the souls by anchoring it to a different point or something. That's
basically
my interpretation.
He's anchoring them to himself.
Yeah.
So they can pass on.
Pretty much.
So that's where the Ancestral Guardian Spirit Shield thing
comes from, because lineage is weird.
Lineage is weird, but it's cool.
Yeah.
I'm super happy we have a Goliath in the campaign. So, Crip, the Goliath, somewhat maybe possible group leader, definitely group gel at the moment, asking if everybody wanted to, strengthen numbers. Oral's bad. What does Crip think about Oral?
That dumb bird that flies over every
Yeah,
night. Yeah,
the
no, it's a dumb bird that flies over every night. Who knows what that is?
okay, there we go. 8 intelligence, 8 intelligence. There we go. Okay, cool. So I'm glad Crip is on that mindset. So after you guys completed the quest and you returned Garrett to his husband Keegan, and Paraloo got back home, what was Crip's initial kind of vibes when you got back to the town?
Okay, this is a place where we might get a warm-ish welcome, all things considering. Like, we hope this guy, like, will at least not be ran out of town or looked at skeptically, in the sense that, oh, I'm a big fella, people are, like, weird. Like,
Okay.
I don't remember, like, I'm sure I've met, like, we didn't really talk about it, but I'm sure I've seen or at least met other Goliaths once in
Yeah,
a while,
for
like, yeah,
sure, for sure.
and noticed there's that
There are
little bit of
Goliaths.
difference between us,
They're
yeah.
absolutely. They mostly stay to the mountains in the spine of
Right.
the world, but there are absolutely Goliaths, and you would know there is a rivalry between the two different types of Goliaths.
Yeah.
So you are aware of that.
Mm.
Okay, cool. So once you got to the town, you did kind of get a warm welcome. You got the reward from Keegan.
Yeah.
Everybody else in the tavern, they bought you drinks for returning Garrett home safely and Paraloo home safely. And then you met that dude.
Yeah, that dude, like, all that I really interacted with was this kind of like, the hell you looking at kind of stare, because that's the kind of look I usually get. Um, yeah, no, from what I could tell, because I don't have a high enough passive to overhear conversations,
Hmm?
but from the interaction with Cody's character, I thought that, okay, this guy's the mayor. He's probably doing something shifty, if not. Well, I mean, this is my player senses being like, okay, maybe
Yeah,
this guy
yeah.
is shifty. Maybe this guy has an ulterior motive, but he's probably doing like a really good, he's trying hard, if not, is doing well-ish.
Okay, and what do you think about the ending of the session with Dan's character Eli being seized, despite Dan saying that Eli had never spent any time in Targos?
I am about to scream.
Okay, good, good. Then
I'm
I've
gonna
got
take
you.
control of that situation immediately, man. Like,
Then
that
I've got you
this is
exactly where
my
you want.
doctor. This is my
Yeah.
doctor, boys.
So here are my thoughts on this session. First of all, I wanted to start the campaign differently for campaign reasons. I wanted to introduce the idea of the Duergar. I'm really hoping they go to the town with the Devil Cult so we can develop that Duergar plot a little bit more. Eventually, obviously, the Chardalyn dragon will attack, and that's a thing that's going to happen with the Duergar. But I wanted to introduce them early. And furthermore, I wanted to introduce the idea of somebody else working with the Duergar within Icewind Dale for their own gain. Now, I wanted to do it very ambiguous at the start because it could have related to either Eli or Cedric, who these people were after. My players still aren't really sure. All they know now is that Eli, who has never been in Targos, has been selected for this lottery, which is being stripped down and sent out into the tundra to die as a sacrifice to Oral. I'm excited for the next session. I hope that we are going to be having a guest on the show, someone who will also be on the channel in the future, and I hope that he's going to be able to progress the plot a little bit more. If not, I will do it through my NPCs. I'm very happy with the way the campaign's going, and I hope you all come over to Friday, 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, to watch us play Icewind Dale Rime of the Frost Maiden. It has been a ton of fun, and I can't wait to see where this campaign takes us. Also, on October 2nd, once again, we'll be giving away a copy of Icewind Dale Rime of the Frost Maiden, so if it's something that you want, come check out the channel and enter in the giveaway on October 2nd. Please follow all the applicable links in the description down below, click like, comment, and subscribe, and let us know what you think about the way everything's going. Until I see you again, I've been Jake from Monsters and Munchkins, you've been my wonderful viewers, and don't forget to have fun and roll some dice.